All right, everybody, we're welcoming everybody here, and we'll get started shortly as everybody's kind of coming in. I think we've got a big crowd coming in today to listen about the secret to hiring more technician talent. So we'll give it about a minute or so, and then we'll get things kicked off. Kind of a fun thing as we're getting going. One of the things that we often do in different webinars is as you come in, maybe put in the chat where you're joining us from, name and where you're joining us from. It's always fun to see from across the country where everybody's joining from, and I think it always gives us good talking points as well. So if you can put that in there, that'd be great. I see they're already streaming in.
Jay, where are you coming from? Start us out.
That's a really, really good question. So just outside of Madison, Wisconsin, in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, you're familiar with Madison?
Very familiar with Madison. Lots of good times had there.
How about you?
Calling out of cloudy Chicago and cold. I'm sure it's similar for you, but still love it here. But we got all across the board coming in for
We
locations.
do.
So fun.
This is impressive. Really, really impressive. This is I think we've got all ends of the country too. So this is really, really exciting.
Ooh, Egg Harbor originally. Fun. It's nice up there.
Wow.
Bend, Oregon, also cool. So both spots are cool.
A lot of cool places. I'm jealous of some of these places. It looks. Oh, we got another Scotty there.
Rhinelander,
All right,
hello.
a few of them. Yeah,
Love to see
yeah.
it.
Yes. All right. Well, while we're getting everybody putting their locations in, we'll do kind of a nice warm welcome to everybody. Thanks to everybody for joining us here today in talking about something that I think is really, really important to our industry right now. This is obviously a pain point and something that we're going to talk a lot about today, and talk about the partnership a little bit between Hireology and WrenchWay, as well as really dive into this topic that I think is all near and dear to our hearts. So, Tiffany, if you're good, I think we're ready to get started.
Yeah, let's kick it.
All right. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Jay Ganinin. I am the co-founder and president of WrenchWay. Don't even try to say my last name. It is really, really complicated and difficult. So hopefully it's not too hard on all of you. But I've spent my entire career in this industry. It's an industry that I love very, very much, and in a lot of ways want to see our industry get to a better place. And I think my career started as a technician, spent some time in sales and management roles prior to starting our company, and just been an awesome industry to me. And hopefully with a webinar like this, we're able to give a little back. Joining me to talk today about this, Tiffany, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Tiffany Serwinski. I'm the director of automotive partnerships here at Hireology. You're going to hear all about Hireology later today, so we'll get to that. But I've been at Hireology for about 2 years now. Prior to my current role of the director of automotive partnerships, I was a customer success manager working with some of our largest automotive customers. And prior to that, I spent about 8.5 years at Ford Motor Company in Chicago. So when I spent my time at Ford, I spent pretty much all of those 8.5 years working with dealerships. So I have just about 10 years of automotive experience all in all. And I love this topic. I think it's just really important for us to talk about this. Continues to be a concern. And that's why I'm so excited that WrenchWay and Hireology are partnering up together. So with that, let's get into what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I think we all, as I mentioned at the top, understand the difficulties that go into this technician shortage right now. And there are stats all over the place. You can read this one from the from the Tech Force Foundation about how bad it is, right? This isn't something that's probably new to most of us. We've battled this for quite some time, but it is reality for all of you, right? This is something that we all struggle with. This is something that impacts our day-to-day lives, the profitability of our dealerships, and really the ability to keep our customers happy. And so the demand for technicians just continues to rise. We continue to see the need. And as technology in vehicles gets more complicated, as we need a different skill set for technicians, it's only going to get harder, right? The baby boomers retiring. I think the average age of a technician currently is in the upper 40s. We've got an aging technician population, and it's really resulted in a lot of difficulties for our industry and a lot of heartache for all of you that are here listening. There's obviously a reason why we have such a big audience here today. It's because of that. We want to get better at this. We need to get better at this. And really, I think as we go through this today, keep an open mind on different ways that you can get better. I think that's one of the really cool parts about the partnership between Hireology and WrenchWay is that we're collaboratively bringing you things like this that can help put you in a better spot. Tiffany, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think like the first thing that comes to mind for me is as we think about the shortage and what it looks like over the next 1, 5, 10 years, like a big thing that stands out is like a higher demand for service, right? Like we find that people are keeping their cars for longer, meaning that those cars are getting older, meaning that they're getting serviced more often, they're needing that service more often. And that means that we just have a greater need for people to actually fulfill that service. And we're not really doing a great job of setting ourselves up for success with that. And the other thing that comes to mind is retiring baby boomers. I feel like we've been talking about this for a long time, but when you think about baby boomers versus millennials and Gen Zs, like millennials and Gen Zs, they were educated differently, and they had different priorities. They weren't really encouraged to enter the industries like automotive, quite like baby boomers were and some of the other, older generations. So we have like a pretty big lapse in people entering the market paired with the need for more cars getting the service that we can't quite handle right now. So your company, my company, like we both really fit the need together. And I think we'll flip to the next slide and we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. But for those of you on the call that don't know what Hireology is, Hireology, we're an applicant tracking system, and we specialize in automotive. And so we help dealerships to facilitate their process from end to end. So everything from needing to get that job posted to filtering through applicants to interviews, texting, emailing, and then all the way through actually clicking that hire button and putting somebody in through their payroll system. Hireology helps with all of those end-to-end hiring steps, and teaming up with WrenchWay. I'm sure most of you guys know what WrenchWay is, but Jay, if you want to give a little preface there as well.
Yeah, and I think this is it's really good to clarify this for some of you that might have some confusion as to what the partnership means. Uh, Wrenchway is more of the job board side. Really, and when I say job board, what we want to do is allow technicians to do their due diligence on a dealership to see why they might be a better fit from their current situation. Along with that, we have a school side that is really, really important to our industry, and we need to get more people into the industry, right? Not only do we need to retain the ones that we have, but we need to pull more in. And the way we do that is really get involved with these schools and with their automotive programs, both at the high school and post-secondary level. So we have a really cool part of the platform that allows industry to go help schools by basically giving a piece of the platform to schools to be able to ask for things. So it could be something like coming to needing a donation or possibly a job shadow or whatever it is that they need. We bring visibility for that school to industry so that we can help fulfill their needs. And right now it's a little challenging with budgets within schools to be able to really raise these programs up to a different level. And our hope is that we're able to kind of pair all of that together.
Yeah. And we actually had a question in the chat, is Hireology only with dealerships? So I might as well answer that already, because I guess I didn't explain it very well. But Hireology, we service a lot of different verticals and a lot of different customers, but we specialize in automotive. So we do not just work with dealerships, but it is about 65% of our business. So we really know automotive. And that's what makes a lot of sense when you take WrenchWay and you put Hireology together. Our goals to really, push the industry forward, they overlap very well. So a couple other things you can get out of the partnership with Hireology and WrenchWay is number one, platform integration. So when you post a job on Hireology, what that means is your job will automatically flow into WrenchWay, and WrenchWay will see your job and technicians will have visibility into that job. So you don't have to do any duplicate posting. And then any technician that applies on WrenchWay as the website on the job board, they'll flow back into Hireology, meaning that you can kind of lessen the amount of sites that you need to use and get benefits from both Hireology and WrenchWay. Second big benefit that we want to talk about for this partnership is that we're going to be doing things like this, which is joint educational webinars. We both love to talk about this stuff. Both companies love to talk about this stuff. So what better way to talk about it than to get together and chit chat on it for an hour? So more of this to come in the future as well. Third, technician-specific hiring content. And spoiler alert, there's going to be a brand new guide coming out later today. You'll have access to it, but coming out officially tomorrow about Hireology and WrenchWay's guide to technician hiring. And then overall, our goal is really to result more technician hires for you guys. So us together, we've got a great plan for what this partnership looks like, just resulting in more hires, like I said. So Jay, what are you excited about?
I'm excited about the entire thing. I think the joint educational webinars are awesome. And the reason I say that is I think there are times where we're shouting from a mountaintop something that it's nice to have somebody hand in hand to be shouting that message with, right? And Hireology, just in general, is a great company. We share very similar values. And I think in a lot of ways just helps us even bring maybe some different viewpoints or some different ways of looking at things. And in our current day market, which is really, really difficult to find technicians, I think the more eyes you can get on the problem, the better. And this partnership, I think, elevates both companies to a different level as it results in hopefully more technician hires. So I'm very, very excited about this partnership. I mentioned this, Tiffany was just on our podcast a couple of weeks ago, and just the quality of people at Hireology and the partnership in general has gotten off to a fast start. Really, really excited to see what comes of it.
Me too. And we have one question in the chat that I'll answer while we're here too, from a Hireology customer. So we will be tagging the Hireology postings from WrenchWay with the source name WrenchWay. So any technician that applies on WrenchWay, you'll see that as a source name in Hireology as WrenchWay, and then you can track the success of those applicants and those hires in your Insights tab on Hireology as well. So all of that will be available to you. And any job you post on Hireology that has technician in it will filter into WrenchWay. So you'll get access to all of that through our API setup.
Great question.
Cool. So flipping over.
Yeah. So I think we want to go to the why. Why are we doing this webinar? Why do we need to maybe approach this a little bit differently? And how do we approach this a little bit differently? And going back to the initial title of this webinar in the first place, what is the secret? What's the secret sauce? I think we get asked that all the time. What site do I post on? What do I do? What's the silver bullet? The answer is being able to actually listen to the people that you're trying to get. And I think both Hireology and WrenchWay have done a fantastic job at getting that feedback. We've done a lot of research and done a lot of surveying, really doing our best to try and listen to those that are really, really hard to find, right? And there are a lot of complaints amongst technicians. And, I think in my opinion, a really good way to approach that is try to attack that head on, right? So if you're hearing some negative things about the industry, and if you go out to any social media platform, you're going to see some negativity from technicians. Maybe work at turning those things into your strengths. What can you do to listen to their common complaints and be able to turn them into strengths for your dealership? So be able to use the research that we have here that is already asking what technicians are thinking, but hopefully going above and beyond that and actually doing something about what they're saying.
Yeah, and I think this is a really important point to kind of touch on as well, as like I mentioned earlier, is like we've got baby boomers leaving the industry, and then we've got our younger generation folks not necessarily entering the industry. And a lot of what your responsibility is as a hiring manager is to sell your company. But a lot of times it comes down to also selling the auto industry. And if we're not really set up for success with that, with low paying jobs or with not the right benefits and everything, we're not doing a great job of getting people into the automotive industry in general. And I think that's something for us to all think about. When you're selling your dealership and you're selling the role, you also have to sell the industry as well, which is kind of hard to do. It feels like you have sort of like the weight of the world of the automotive industry on your shoulders. But it's something we have to do if we care about what we do, if we care about our company and everything. So listen to feedback. And a lot of times that means feedback about automotive industry in general, and then also what your people just need at your dealership. I want to bring us into kind of like what motivates people to actually accept a job in the auto space. And, spoiler alert, it's really not what you think. We talk about pay a lot, but according to a Hireology study released last year, when people are met with two jobs with the same pay, only 8% of people say that nothing would sway them from taking the higher paying option. So what that means to me is 92% of people would take a lower paying job if the job had the right benefits. And that is not to say that pay is not important. We absolutely know pay is important and we must be competitive with it. Like, we cannot be underpaying people. But when we put pay next to other benefits, for example, culture, fulfilling work, other career growth opportunities, sometimes pay is undershadowed by what those other opportunities can be. And I think we need to think about that when we think about what your company offers in terms of career growth, making their lives fulfilling and enjoyable, what the culture looks like, and sometimes the dreaded word of flexibility, right? Like, what all of these things mean to your people. It makes an impact on whether they want to come work for you and whether they want to stay in the auto industry or move on to something else.
What a
So
concept. You want to enjoy where you work. No.
yeah, I know. Sometimes it's surprising, right? I can't believe it. But it's true, right? The data says it. So when it comes down to it, like, we want to think about what we can do to really design technician jobs that qualified technicians actually want to take. And we know that technicians have the upper hand in the job market. And really, like I said earlier, the talent pool is getting younger and younger. And the younger folks, they really just value different things than their older counterparts. So we want to think back to what people are valuing, sometimes more than pay. The number one thing, like we said, is career growth. And career growth, it's critical to what we do as an organization and what you put into your job descriptions when you're writing them. Jay, any thoughts on career growth?
A lot of thoughts on career growth because it is really, really important. But I do think we pin this on younger generations a lot, right? And I always look back to that technician that is 55 years old and maybe their body's starting to wear down a little bit. Do you think they might want to know what their next 10 years looks like? It's really, really important to understand that this isn't just a young person thing, although that is a really, really appealing piece to the younger generation, is understanding what their career path is, really seeing that there's going to be training opportunities available to them. We actually had done a study within WrenchWay called Voice of Technician Survey, and that was one of, if not the top response of what technicians were looking for in their next employer was career growth and training, right? So the kind of the two go hand in hand. They want to be trained to be able to grow. So there's a lot of value in that. The second point there, open door policies and mentorship opportunities. I think one of the real difficulties our industry has is having that open door and really having people feel welcome to coming in that open door, right? And having that good, open, honest conversation with their leadership. So the more you can kind of create that psychological safety with your team and allow them to be able to have open conversations with you, very, very important. The mentorship piece, it's really, really hard for me because I've seen it done wrong by so many people. And I think a lot of times we talk about mentorship and maybe don't do a great job at it, but there's a reason why we have such a high attrition rate with young technicians, and it's because we don't do a good job mentoring. So a lot of opportunity there, a lot of different ways to go about that. But I do think that it's really, really important that you prioritize that in career growth for your employees. Third point, career specific training programs. Uh, Being able to, again, listen to what your people are saying, being able to piece together something. A lot of times at the dealership side or the dealership level, you're going to have manufacturers required technical training, but maybe that technician wants to become a service writer or a service manager at some point down the line. What are you doing to maybe train up some of those soft skills and be able to get them to a better spot? And then last point, and Tiffany, I'll let you kind of add to this, but always recognize and celebrate growth. I think it can get really, really easy, especially in a shop environment, to just kind of stay in your stall and do the work, and maybe not get any kudos for doing that work. So when somebody does get a certification or somebody does do something over and above, to be able to recognize them and shine a light on them as somebody that is contributing to your team and doing some pretty amazing things, because that goes a really, really long way.
Yeah, I get two things that kind of come to mind here. I think the first thing that comes to mind is a lot of times we get afraid of mentorship programs and we get afraid of talking about career growth because we don't want to lose that awesome technician from being a technician. But the reality is, like, sometimes people's goals change a little bit. Sometimes what they want to do with their lives and their careers, it changes. And so I think I like to think about it in a sense of like, would you rather block somebody from getting the promotion or whatever, transitioning to service advisor because they don't want to be a technician anymore, and then have them leave you, or keep that really quality person on your payroll? Like, in my opinion, you know what you have, right? Like, you trust them, they've been with you for a long time. Like, I would rather keep them on my payroll than block them from maybe giving them the opportunity to try something new and show, what a quality employer you are. So I think that when people express a desire to expand their career, as much as we can support that, even though sometimes it's scary or hard, I think it's really important. And to think about recognizing and celebrating growth too. Like, this is something that I think in many companies is underutilized. A good example of something that we do at Hireology, every Tuesday we have an all company huddle, and during our huddle, people are allowed to nominate other coworkers for a job well done in the past, right? So it's like on Monday, they can go put in their submission for different core value shout outs. And then the VP, whoever is leading the huddle for the week, they go ahead and they read off these shout outs for what a great job people are doing. And this just really gives people the opportunity to commend other coworkers and for other coworkers to get that recognition, because sometimes we just get in our lane, we never leave it, and then other people can't see the great things that are happening. So doing things like that in the huddle and putting that like recognition out there has just been an awesome way to just engage people as a team and really make people feel a part of the company rather than just like in their lane doing their thing. Just a little bit of recognition, it goes a long way.
Well, and having some structure around it, right? Like, so you're almost forcing yourself to do it, but it's still really, really cool when it happens. And I think that is so important, because as leaders, it can be really easy to get kind of lost in your day to day. So I applaud you for doing that at Hireology. The one comment I did want to point out is Randy Dreyer says technicians become too valuable to promote in many organizations. And that is really, really true. And I think that's the struggle with career growth is, as leaders, you maybe don't want to see that technician leave to go into a different role. But if you sit down and listen to them and they say, hey, you know what, I have a heart for education, okay, can we put you in a mentorship type position within the shop? Or maybe they want to slow down in the shop so their bodies aren't getting so beat up. What can you do to help them get to where they're at? Because to Tiffany's point, if they're a great employee and they're a great person, why would you want to lose that out of your organization? Why not find a good fit for them that's going to help you grow other technicians, or just continually gain, I guess, customers because you're so good at what you do? I don't know why you wouldn't want to give them a path.
Agreed. And I have one more comment too, just that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen here is a couple of career pathing examples. This is an example of something that at Hireology, we encourage our customers to do on their career site. So put it visually so that when people are looking at your business, looking at your company and deciding what they want to do, they can see that, like, hey, if they start as a lube tech, someday they'll be a tech apprentice technician, whatever that career path kind of looks like. Have that front and center, and have people that are just perusing your website able to see that as well. And then quick note, we do see a ton of questions coming through the chat, so thank you for those. We are going to answer anything that we don't get to in the presentation at the end. So keep asking them, but we'll get to them at the end. So with that, we'll keep going on to our next topic, which is flexibility. So second most important topic is flexibility. And a lot of times flexibility is a really scary word because people are like, oh, we don't offer work from home. We can't do that. And flexibility, it really doesn't mean work from home. And in automotive, it is really hard to kind of visualize what this means, because your dealership, it needs to be open at certain times of day, and there's just no way around having people physically on site to do the work. But there's other ways that you can add flexibility that people really want and that they really need, outside of just working from home. The first one I want to touch on is a compressed work week. So I heard an example recently of another dealer group that's moving to 4/10s for their work schedule. And this is it's a huge lift, right? It means changing their hours of operation for the dealership. It means changing, how things have worked for the last however many years. It's a really big lift, but there's a lot that it actually does for their employees as well. It allows people to have a little bit of extra flexibility on that third day that they can be home to do things with their family, to handle the things that they can't because they are working long hours on other days of the week. And not to say that you need to go to your 4/10s, for example, but there are options out there to do things a little bit differently on your hours than you've done in the past. The second one I want to comment on is like a choose your own schedule or flex time. And kind of similarly, this gives people sort of non-flex and flex time hours. So for example, you need people to be in from, let's call it 4 to 6 p.m. every day. Those are non-flex hours. Other hours throughout the day, maybe they need to get in an hour late because they need to drop their kids off so they can stay an hour later. Let's think about flex time versus non-flex time hours to give people a little bit more flexibility with their schedule so they can handle the things that they need to handle. And obviously this all comes with approval, right? You're not just going to approve everything that everybody asks, but if people have a circumstance where it warrants approval, then this should be something that you can offer them. Last two on here, extra PTO and also on-demand pay, both things that if you can offer anything like this, it's just a really great way to show your employees that you're thinking of them. And that there are things that you want to be able to do for them if they need it. And I think all of these are just examples, right? Like you won't know what flexibility really means to your employees until you ask them. And I always say you might be surprised at what you find out. Not everybody means they want to work from home when they say they need flexibility. So ask your employees, maybe send out a survey to get their feedback on what flexibility means to them, but it could be easier than you're letting on at this point. Third and fourth. Sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I think there were so many good points there. And I think points 3 and 4 kind of add to that, right? We're looking for culture and we're looking for fulfilling work. And that first point, establish core values, is so important because I think that helps create clarity. I think ultimately that culture that you're so much wanting is driven by your core values. And that second point is really easy. Hire based on those values and people that meet those values and really match those values. But I think it's almost as important to fire the people that don't match those values, right? So they actually has some teeth. And I think a lot of times, if you have a set of values and say you have a certain team member that's sliding on some of those values, it's easy to keep them. But what you might be doing is driving high level performers out, and that can be really damaging. I know we've all heard of cancers in the workplace, and that really can come from that. So it's easy to hire based on those values. And when I say easy, it's not easy all the time, right? When we're trying to hire technicians, a lot of times we're desperate to hire technicians. So what do? We might loosen up what we will hire in terms of values, right? Maybe they don't match all of our values, but guess what? We need a body and that person is skilled. We're going to hire them. That's a mistake. We see it all the time. We call it reactive hiring, right? You're so buried in your day-to-day life that you just want to get by to the next day and you make a bad hire as a result. It really, really does some damage to your dealership. So be very mindful of that. The second point, set clear and realistic goals. I think everybody likes to accomplish a goal. And when you do, you feel really, really good about it. Sometimes it's fuzzy as to what those goals are, right? And I think in a service type of environment, it's really easy to only point to KPIs and only point to goals. So being a good leader and really understanding how to use those goals in a way to drive drive efficiency, drive productivity, drive whatever it is that you're wanting to drive happy team members is really, really important. We've talked about seeking and acting on feedback. I think one of the big things that I'll talk about with culture is if you say that you're listening, if you really, tout that you're listening to your team, but you don't do anything once you're listening to them, that can have a really, really negative impact on how your team sees you, right? if you are the one that's known as not getting stuff done, or they think that when they take you a problem, they are speaking to the wall essentially because they know nothing's going to get done, you're not doing anything positive there. So if you are going to listen, which you should, make sure that you act accordingly. And there are going to be times when maybe somebody asks you or gives you feedback that you can't act on. Make sure you communicate that, right? Don't just say that you're going to do it in the back of your head knowing that you're not. Make sure that you're able to act on it. And if you can't, make sure you close that feedback loop so that they understand why you couldn't go through with anything. Management
Yeah,
training. Oh, sorry.
I
Go
was
ahead,
just gonna,
Tiffany.
I was just gonna say, I can't stand, I take the set time to do a survey and then, nobody says anything about it. It's like, wait a second. Not to say that happens at Hireology, but it is really frustrating when it comes down to it. It's like you take the time to give the feedback. And I think I really like your point of at least just recognizing that we got the feedback. We can't make changes on it now, but been received and at least acknowledge it. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. And the last point on management training, I think is so underrated because I feel like the reason why we're at where we're at today is because of lack of management training in a lot of ways, right? I had the pleasure of doing a podcast this morning with an individual who had moved up the ranks from starting off as a technician to now a fixed ops director. And we talked a lot about that transition and how hard it is to understand that management is different than working on a car. The skill set is really, really different. There are some things that you can pull in with you. The ability to problem solve and critically think through things is really important in management. But at the end of the day, it is a different skill set, and understanding that if that technician wants to go into management at some point, maybe you should invest some resources into training them to get to that next level. Going back to our career path and career growth slide, that's all part of it, right? Being able to paint that path and what you need to do to get to where you want to go, pretty darn important.
And then, oops, lost my mouse. There we go. Sorry.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the other considerations. Pay structure is a big one. When we talk about listening to our technicians, it's not only just our technicians, it's industry as a whole, right? So if you're going out to one of these chat forums, whether it's a Facebook group or a Reddit group, you can get a lot of insight into what technicians are saying. Now, some of it is really, really negative, and there's really in your head, you kind of have to separate the negative from the productive. What are things that you can pull out of there to maybe try and make your pay structure a little bit more appealing? I was talking with a dealership not too long ago that's actually offering several different types of pay structures. So they're allowing the technician to choose what's best for them. And so I think as you're going and as we're learning in this industry and trying to understand what a technician is really wanting, a lot of times it does go back down to sitting with them and learning what they actually want and adapting as a result. I know some dealerships that have got some really, really good people just by offering some level of flexibility, like Tiffany mentioned earlier. So the pay structure is a big one, just to listen to what your people are saying. Warranty work, I think we all know there's some manufacturers that maybe pay a little bit better than others in terms of time given for warranty work. Making sure that you understand the difficulties that they're seeing, and if there are significant challenges with that, maybe you do need to go talk to the manufacturer a little bit more in depth. Maybe you do need to get your paperwork done correctly so that they can see, the manufacturer can see that they're shortchanging you there. Proper shop equipment, again, going back to our voice of technician survey, that was one of the number one things that good technicians desired, was simply properly working shop equipment, updated scanners, making sure that your hoists have been inspected so they feel safe. Really, really simple things. And the last point, tool programs. We're seeing more and more of this, whether it's tool reimbursement or dealerships just supplying tools. We're seeing more and more of that. I know there are several really, really good dealership groups that are supplying the toolboxes. There's a number of different ways that you can go about that. Again, being able to talk to your people, understanding what their challenges are. So hopefully you can combat that and offer a better solution.
And I saw a question come through the chat. I think is a good time to answer here. The question was, do you offer this stuff on day one, or do you offer it 90 days after somebody's been hired? And I think when it comes to like any one of these considerations, like the top 4 things people are looking for, or these other considerations that Jay just touched on, I think you can do either way. I think it depends on what your dealership's policies are for when it comes to healthcare insurance and things like that in general. But if you are going to offer it after day 90, for example, make sure to put that on your website, right? If you're going to put all of these benefits on your website about your great flexibility or great culture and everything, and what other benefits that people are going to be getting, make sure to spell out that that is part of the policy, that it doesn't start until that 90th day or 91st day. But I think either way works. Jay, any opinions on that?
Very solid point there. One of the things that will drive technicians absolutely crazy is that if they go into an interview, they get hired and they feel like the carpet's pulled from underneath them because something wasn't clearly stated. I'm
Yeah,
a huge believer in transparency, as I know you guys are as well. The transparency and being upfront about your job offering, I think goes a long way. And there are a lot of technicians that I've talked to that feel burned by the industry as a whole because they have been lied to by shops, or maybe not even lied to, but maybe they made their offering seem a little bit better than what it actually was. And once
right.
they get there, they're going to find out, right? They're going to be in it. So why not let them know up front so that they don't run into an issue or don't feel negatively about your company.
Yeah, and we're not really going to get into this today, but when you think about onboarding, right? Like imagine coming in on your first day and realizing that like what you were told during your interview feels like a lie, right? Like the last thing we want to do is mislead people when it comes to benefits. So there's a variety of ways to structure this stuff, and it kind of depends on what you guys are determined as a team. But I think it can work in a lot variety of different ways. Okay,
All right. Oh, go ahead, Tiffany.
you're up.
On me. So I think the hard part, and this is why we're here, right, is how do we reach this top technician talent that we all so desperately try to get in front of? And I think the very first point I would make is going back to our very first slide. You have to keep in mind that there aren't enough people to fill all of the open spots, right? And I say this over and over and over again. I oftentimes feel like maybe I'm talking to myself when I say this, but there's a reason why there's a pain. It's because it's a math problem and that there aren't enough people to fill all of these open spots. And it's left us in this kind of Wild West setting where we're all trying to find that top technician talent. So it is something that is a struggle. What I'll say is there isn't a silver bullet and it's really, really hard. But that's why we're having this conversation today, is to hopefully make you stand out from the crowd. And I think that can be really, really challenging. Um, okay, so this is why, right? Going back to the numbers, we use this graph quite a bit. But as you look at this chart, the way that we like to break this down is that roughly 20% of technicians are really, really happy. We actually need that part of the pie to grow, right? We need more happy technicians so that we don't have kind of the holes in the boat that continually sink us, right? We need to shore those up a little bit and really make those technicians happier, listening to them, making a more attractive job offer or job opportunity. All of those things are going to help us keep more people in the industry. Now, the other side is the 5% that are probably always looking for jobs. They're always on the job boards. They're always just looking everywhere, right? And at times, I think they're the job hoppers. They're the ones that are always going to jump for a dollar an hour and might not be the most loyal. But then there's that final 75% of the pie, and a lot of them are I say content but not happy, right? They go to work, they get their paycheck, but there's really no passion or no loyalty to the brand. It's just that maybe it's an inconvenience for them to pick up their toolbox and go somewhere else. So that 75% can be very open to your messaging if you're able to get that in front of them. So I think we'll run through some different opportunities to do that. But just to understand the pie, there are a lot of technicians that would be willing to listen to what you have to say.
So that really brings us to sort of the 6 big channels that we recommend dealerships leverage when looking to fill their roles. And I'm going to touch on each one of these, and we'll start with job boards. So, well, we know that based on, what you just saw, that most of the target audience is not actually looking for jobs day in and day out. Indeed is commonly the most often used channel, and it's generally the first place that job seekers go to look for jobs. And then given, the popularity of Indeed, it's a good thing to think about possibly sponsoring jobs on Indeed when you are in an absolute need for somebody, because sponsoring jobs on Indeed, they generally lead to 4.5 times more quick hires. So Indeed is a really good place to start. We have to be on Indeed. We do love Indeed, and have to do a little tout to our partnership with Indeed. Hireology and Indeed have recently partnered, and we are platinum levels partners, which is awesome. But when we get down to it, industry specific job boards like WrenchWay can really offer a better option for targeting specific talent like technicians. So it's not enough to just be on the job boards, though. When it comes down to what you're doing, you can't just post a job and hope that people will apply. There really is sort of different things that you need to do to stand out with your job descriptions. And that's why I have that chart over here on the left-hand side. This is sort of our equation for the best job description. And we always recommend you start with a job title. Job title should really be 1 to 3 words and make it what is commonly known in the market. Don't complicate it using internal jargon or exclamation points, all the fun stuff that you think stands out when it comes to job titles. Just keep it simple, make it what is most commonly known in the market. And then from there, going to quickly summarize your organization, what you guys are about. Don't make this a huge paragraph, because you have to think about mobile and how this is going to look on a mobile phone. If you have a huge paragraph about your company, it's going to take a while to get to like, okay, what's the job? What's in it for me? So quick company overview. Go into a quick job summary. 1 to 2 sentences is all you need here, so that you make sure that like the people that are looking at this job, they know what they're getting into. So from that 1 to 2 seconds, like, do they want to learn more? Are they interested? Or do they want to move on to the next job description or a job posting that they're looking at? From there, we recommend you go right into benefits. So I see a lot of postings where benefits are all the way at the bottom of their job descriptions, and I would encourage you to go look at your job descriptions when you get a chance. Benefits, they should be at the top of your posting. When we go back to what Jay and I talked a little bit about earlier, it's really important that you are selling your dealership and you're also selling the automotive industry when it comes to it. So it is the what's in it for me when it comes to hiring. Candidates and applicants, they want to know what they're going to get out of working for you. So don't put the things like responsibilities and requirements before the benefits, because sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming. It's like, okay, this looks like a great job, but like, what am I going to get out of it? So think about this as sort of your trajectory that you use for all of your job postings, and make sure that they look good and quality. Always look on a mobile device to make sure that everything shows up properly as well, because most people are looking on mobile when they are searching for a job.
Another way to really be able to get out in front of maybe that experienced technician that is uh, open to those opportunities, but might not necessarily be on a job board, or even that entry level technician that maybe their parents don't want them in this industry, or maybe they're fighting other external forces that don't allow them to be able to come into our shop. Social media is a great way to kind of build your brand, right? And it's a good way to really become that destination shop in the eyes of a technician. Now, the problem that we see a lot of times with social postings is that the only time we talk to technicians is when we say we're hiring. So what can you do to help build your brand, really build that following, build that familiarity, so that technicians actually know who you are? I think a lot of us say, come work here because we have a great family atmosphere, or that we have great management, but every single post says that. So how do you show that? Social media can be a really, really good way to do that. Second point being document, don't create. And I think it's really easy to say that, but so often we get stuck in our heads and we're trying to create content for social media, when maybe we just take a picture of a tech working on a car and maybe fill them in on what they're doing on that car. I think the general public is kind of fascinated by that, but maybe that technician that's out there, it shows that they appreciate their technicians, that shop appreciates their technicians. Being able to maybe go a little bit extra there, I think is really helpful. If you can ask your employees to share on their social pages, that extends your network, right? If you do put that post out there and they have pride in their job and they want to share that they do have pride in their job, sharing on social media is a very simple thing for them to do and can help you get your message out there to people that aren't following your company. Consistency is key. I just looked at a company's social strategy the other day, and they were good for posting a good 1 to 2 times a year, whether they needed to or not. So I think you can consistently get after this. It helps change your brain a little bit and how it's wired and how you look for content. And if you're doing it consistently, you'll just constantly get better at it. And it does supplement customer marketing. I do think the general public is interested in what we do. And I do think that it helps to educate them as to maybe why your labor rates are going up, why it's more expensive to get their car fixed now than it was 10 years ago. They need to know how talented these technicians are, how talented all of these teams are in general. And in a lot of ways, I don't know that us as an industry, I don't know that we do a great job of that.
Next to touch on is referrals. And this was coming to mind as you were talking about social strategy. When we think about quality, like furthering your reach, we need to think about reaching candidates in a variety of different ways. And referrals continues to be one of the most quality sources of hires and applicants in general. So it's really important to think about this as an effective way for your technician recruitment strategy as well, because good techs, they really know other good techs. And we know based on the data collected from Hireology that generally teams are willing to refer their friends, and job seekers value their friends' feedback as well. So this is especially important when it comes to auto, because like people talk, right? You've got former colleagues' opinions that play into things, different employer opinions that play into things. And, we want to think about what a really good employee referral program looks like. And you want to make sure to, number one, align your bonus payout to the difficulty of finding the role. So if you are, needing a technician super desperately, you haven't found somebody in 6 months, you've got a bay open that's just, costing you money. That is a really sought after position, and you should be incentivizing your referrals to meet that. So you can have a tiered level of approach here, where some roles get a $500 referral bonus, maybe $200 referral bonus. But when it comes to that technician, if you get a referral for that, think about, something on the zeros, right? 2,000 or maybe more, depending on what you're looking at, but always align the bonus payout with the difficulty that you're having filling the role. Second, make submitting referrals easy. This is not your employee's job to submit referrals, so don't make them jump through hoops to get the referral submitted. Make it easy so that they can do it on their phones. Hireology has a referral tool within the platform that makes this a really easy process using a chat bot. And it just takes a couple of seconds to refer somebody, and you can kind of see an example of what that chat bot looks like on the left-hand side of the screen. But make it easy for them so that they don't have to take time out of their day to figure out how to do this for you. Third, make sure to frequently communicate the program internally. People need to hear things multiple times before it sinks in. And it makes it really easy if you're consistently promoting this program and what roles you're promoting, how to submit somebody, what the payout is. An example comes to mind with Hireology. When we have a new position getting posted, we always offer referrals for it. And during the weekly huddle, like I mentioned earlier, we'll have a role of the week or a role of the month, and we'll remind people like, hey, we're still hiring for X role, still looking for your referrals. Scan this QR code and refer somebody today. So we've got people at our company that will share this out via LinkedIn. Other people in their network will click on that referral, and then they will get referred to Hireology, and that Hireology person will get a referral bonus as well. So we talk about our referral program, if not weekly, then monthly, making sure that everybody knows that it's there. And that kind of goes hand in hand with automating your campaigns. So when it comes to referrals, is there something that you can do internally to automate your campaign? If you're going to remind people monthly, can you set up something to go out monthly so you don't even have to think about it, right? This is just a reminder that goes out. They'll get the reminder, and then hopefully you get more referrals. So think about different ways to make this process easier for you. Automating things being number one. Number two, making it usable through text and then also email. And when you think about using text and email, it saves a lot of time if you have to be constantly reminding people if this is automated. And if they can do it using text and using email, that's less emails that they need to dig up in their phone. They can just use a phone number instead. Again, all of this connects back to how you can make it easier to get referrals. And sometimes figuring it out at the beginning can be the toughest part. Once you've got it moving, it should just be plug and play, and it should just be pretty automatic with how things are moving for that. But finally, and this should go without saying, but always follow through on your bonuses. Make sure that you're building trust with people, because the last thing you want to do is say that you're going to give them a bonus and then never pay them out on the bonus. So make sure that you're staying organized with your programs and making sure that you're always following through on anything that you offer in regards to payment. Okay, and then also leveraging your own database. So there's another sort of talent source that I feel like dealerships generally are overlooking, and that is like your own database of connections. And whether this is former employees or former applicants or former candidates, or it's former referrals, these are all people that if you're using Hireology are in your system already. You already have all of this data. And if you're able to get these contacts sort of centralized into your database, you should be using this as a source in and of itself. So think about reaching out to these folks consistently over time and keep them nurtured and engaged and interested in your dealership, so that when you actually need to fill a role really quickly, you have this internal database of people that have applied in the past. I've got two examples that come to mind on this really quickly. I was working with a customer last year, and what they did was they actually were able to raise their wages for all of their porters. And what they did once they raised the wages, they just did a campaign out to their previous applicants. And it was sort of like, look what a cool thing we did as a company. We raised wages. And it wasn't even anything like a real big sales pitch, but it was just keeping people engaged with what a great company they were, so that they could keep, so they could stay top of mind when a job did get posted. The other example I like to think about for this is like if you're hiring, and this doesn't always happen to technicians, I know we're in a shortage, but if you think about other positions that you're hiring for, and you've got two great candidates that come in and interview at the same time. You end up going with candidate A, but candidate B was like a really great second choice, but you just don't have space for them at this time. When you have a need that arises in the future, why don't we recontact that person? If they were such a great second choice, like we should be recontacting them. You've already taken them through the interview process. You've already had them sometimes meet your team, come into the dealership. What better way to use Hireology or your ATS in general as a source for you to, find other avenues for talent? And I think that's it for our top 6. Jay, I'll send it over to you.
It was great advice, and you were doing an outstanding job walking through it. So always good to learn that. I guess these stats and the importance of relationships, kind of adding on to Tiffany's point there, 67% would return to an organization they've worked for in the past. Keep in mind, and I gave a presentation in Dallas, Texas last week, how you treat that person leaving in the last week or two before they're gone can have a big impact to whether that's actually possible or not, right? Sometimes we get upset because somebody's leaving and maybe we don't treat them the best in their time before they leave. But keep that in mind. There's a lot of employees that will come back to you if they're treated well. And I think that's a really, really important thing to think about. 79% would be open to working at an organization they applied to in the past but weren't hired. Again, going back to that, staying in touch with that type of person. Again, very important. And 83% would refer a friend to an organization they worked for in the past if their experience was positive. That last part is absolutely huge. If their experience was positive, and really even with the referrals from your current team, if you find yourself struggling to get referrals from your current team, you might want to look at how they're feeling about their current position, because that might tell you a lot. And maybe you need to change some things in that regard. So again, going back to the listening, really key point right there. All right. So working with local schools, I saw some of the comments about the applicants coming in being fairly entry level. I think at some point we have to be realistic with what we're going to be able to attract, right? We all want that unicorn diagnostic technician, and they're really, really hard to get. On top of that, they're probably already being taken care of in a really, really nice way from their current employer, right? That they don't want to see their best person leave. So being able to think through how you raise that next generation of technician is really, really important. We have to have some patience in growing that next generation. And it starts with working with schools. So uh, build a relationship with your local high school, understand what their needs are, understand what they need to take their program to the next level, and hopefully you can be on top of that so that you can get some technician talent up and into the big leagues, if you will. It does take some training, it does take some effort, and I think at the end of the day, when you come to the realization that there aren't enough people, you can start to understand that I need to develop my own, and we need to have a program. It's really easy to focus on the fact that you need people right now, but it's not going to get any easier 5 years from now. So what are you doing to make sure that your life is easier 5 years from now than it is right now? Really, really important.
Yeah, I always think about the 5 years from now. It's a scary way to think. But the reality is like we're all probably still going to be around and thinking about this in 5 years. So it's like now is the time to do that. So very valid point. And one other thing I want to comment on here is career sites. If you're a customer of Hireology or WrenchWay, truly, both you're very familiar with career sites and how important it is to grow this as a base and to use this as a source for your applicants. But studies show that the majority of job seekers visit your career site at some point during the process. Regardless of where they first heard about the job in the first place, at some point they will stumble along your career site. So if they see you on Indeed or they hear about you from a friend, at some point they're going to find their way onto your dealership site and they're going to try and figure out if this is a place that they want to work. So it's really, really important that you use your career site to really showcase what makes you stand out and highlight what people really want and what they need when it comes to their jobs. So, again, highlight those benefits that we talked about earlier. So do things like put things about your culture, like what you're doing in the community. Make sure to include images and also videos as well. Any type of testimonial videos, they always go a really long way from happy employees. Like we've got a variety of those that come up. And I think this is a really good way to show people what it's like to work at your dealership. And then also do things to showcase like what you're doing in the community. People want to see that you're giving back too. Like they want to make sure that this is an environment that works for them. So the more you can add on your career site to really showcase it's different about you, the better. One thing that I love on Hireology career sites, and then I'll let Jay talk about their pages as well. But one thing I love about the career sites is that people that choose to put career pathing on their websites. I mentioned this earlier, but you should put it somewhere front and center. If you're finding that, like I said, most people are touching on your career site at some point during the process, put it on there what those career pathing charts look like. Put it on there what it might look for them to be here in 1, 5, 10 years down the road. As much information as you can give them as possible. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, and transparency. That I'll be quick on mine because we're running a little short on time. Transparency and authenticity are huge. Don't be a robot and don't act like everything's perfect all the time. I think the more you can work to build trust, and I think you can build trust through transparency and authenticity, the better off you are. And I really, really think if you break it down to the fact that there are human beings in the building. Even some of these Taj Mahal dealerships that are out there, there's still really good people that work in those dealerships. So making sure that you're welcoming to get that person in, I think you can do that with your career site. And a lot of good points on your end, Tiffany. There, just I think they're always going to use your career site at some level to do some research and feel comfortable enough to actually put the application in.
And with that, since we are running out of time, I think we'll flip over to just kind of a summary for you and we can help answer a couple of questions here. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the content. I knew Jay and I, we always get going. Too much chatting. But a couple of summary points that we'll leave on here for you. And then, like I said, we have a sneak preview of our Hireology plus WrenchWay guide on technician hiring. So you can scan this QR code. The guide is coming out tomorrow via email. If you're probably on our email distribution list, so you'll get that as well, but scan it here if you want that today. And then I think we had a couple of questions that we were going to try and run through today. Just a quick reminder, you will get a recording of this and then also the slides that we went through. So you'll have all of that available to you. And then we can kind of run through a couple of these questions as we time out here. I saw one somewhere that was, how do you link your Hireology account and your WrenchWay account? If you're a current Hireology and WrenchWay customer, if you use both of us, you can email info@wrenchway.com with just your request to link the sites. And then WrenchWay will handle that. We'll work together to handle that. And then just a reminder about that integration, all of that happens automatically. I saw that question earlier. It's just like your jobs on Indeed and ZipRecruiter and all of our other places on Hireology. Any job posted on Hireology will automatically go into WrenchWay, so you do not have to do anything for that. And then also, if you are a current Hireology customer, WrenchWay is offering a 25% discount, 25% off discount to sign on with them through the end of April. So again, Jay, I think the best way is email info@wrenchway.com.
You got it. Yeah. Or
Okay.
you can go to wrenchway.com. We'll make sure we get you the discount for Hireology, and make sure you get your 25% off.
There is a question on cost in here. I don't know, Jay, if you want to answer that on here, or if you want to handle that outside.
Yeah, no, it's cost for WrenchWay. We do an annual membership. It breaks down to $150 a month. And then with that 25% discount, so you would get the 25% discount on the $1,800 a year. So good question. I did see the question on how is WrenchWay marketing their platform to encourage tech candidates. That's a great question. I think we take our own advice in terms of trying to cast a wide net. We use the traditional marketing such as Google or Facebook, but we have a big presence on TikTok. We do have a big presence on YouTube, and a lot of content, right? Like a lot of this type of content is what we take pride in, and hoping that we make it educational and not salesy type of content, which is again why Hireology was such a good partner, because it was we were able to pull this together, and they do a lot of the same stuff. So it's very, very helpful.
And then I think there's one other question in the Q&A, Jay, if you want to take a look at that. 5 locations operating under one parent company.
Yes. So if you have that is per rooftop, right? So each membership is per rooftop. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to explain that with you.
And then I said it already, but the slides are getting emailed to you along with the recording as well. So you'll have all of that after this. And then I don't see any other questions coming through. So I apologize if we did miss anything, feel free to reach out to us at info@hireology.com. Also info@wrenchway.com is another email that you can also reach out to as well. But exciting stuff is that we are doing more of this. So get excited for more. And I'm really excited about the Hireology and WrenchWay partnership. And I hope you guys are as well. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tiffany.